Bonjour! Welcome to the 2015's final episode of So French, a podcast about the twists and turns, intrigues and insights to all things French.
Every 2 weeks we select the best, most interesting and fascinating of French news stories, all brought to you from our studio in the heart of Paris. My name is Sara Bertilsson.
And my name is Stefan Vries. This week we'll talk about one deep scar in the French national pride, if not the deepest, and we see if the government's latest attempt to deal with it is the full purifying cure that many are waiting for. And we'll also have a look at the French yearly bribing season, who to bribe and not.
But first, while the rest of us have been busy buying, wrapping and opening presents, the French politicians have been busy fighting over nothing less but the Constitution. As always, when it comes to constitutional changes, it's not just a cosmetic change. This time, the issue is whether French-born nationals with a double nationality could be stripped of their French citizenship if convicted of terrorist crimes. This idea has long been floating around in an extreme right camp, but in his speech to the French upper and lower house straight after the November 13th terrorist attacks in Paris, the socialist president, François Hollande, launched the move as part of a new anti-terrorism bill. So, Stefan, this law is not yet even up for debate in the Assembly, but the heat is definitely already on.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a very controversial topic because many critics say that it will basically create two kinds of citizens. French citizens who are born here and are just French, and French citizens who are born here but who happen to have a parent from another country, or they just have a double or triple nationality. So there's a lot of criticism going on, also because it's originally an idea of the far right. So François Hollande is actually getting more right than the extreme right, and that of course is something very difficult to accept for a lot of people who voted for what they thought to be a socialist president.
Yeah, they definitely, no one is agreeing on this. The left is split, the right is split. I guess that the only one who's actually not split is the extreme right, the National Front.
Yes, exactly, because they say this is our idea, and now the French president admits that it was a good idea. So we were right all along. They've been saying that already since November, since the border checks were reintroduced on the French borders, because the Front National always has said that they want to close the borders again, that Europe is very dangerous. So it's just one big Christmas present for Marine Le Pen.
And it's a very symbolic Christmas present, a symbolic in that way that a lot of people are questioning if this will have any effect whatsoever on the hunt for terrorists. And secondly, it comes with quite a lot of consequences, as you say, for people who have double nationalities, who will no longer be considered as the same type of nationals as those who only have a French citizenship.
They will be considered as potential threats to the nation. It's actually quite a large group, around 3.5 million people who are born in France but have a second nationality. And more importantly, the change of the constitution that François Hollande proposed will not do anything against terrorism. At least that's what Prime Minister Manuel Valls said last week. He acknowledged it was just a symbolic measure, but nevertheless absolutely necessary. And ironically, Valls, as you know, is himself an immigrant. He was actually born in Spain and became French when he was 20 years old. So yes, it's really a proposition to please the voters of the extreme right, and more precisely the Front National, of course, the party that did so well in the regional elections earlier this month. And if you ask me, I think it's all very cynical.
What's interesting in this is the reason why many say that the reason why the far right did so well was exactly because they saw that all these suggestions that they've had before were now taken up by the government. So to do this, go even one step further and do this yet again, in what way could that possibly take back the voters from the far right and put them on the side of the Socialist Party in this case?
Yes, that's a good question. It's very cynical from François Hollande to introduce this measure to change the constitution. And the voters, they always prefer the original and not some, a copy.
Copycats.
Copycats, yeah, that won't work. But apparently François Hollande is, maybe desperate, and he thinks that everything is allowed to get the voters back. And what he's doing is basically blowing up his own party, because inside the party, a lot of people are against this measure. So that's something that he will have to deal with in the next couple of weeks, because I think the vote is programmed for the end of January or February. So, maybe in a month from now, the Socialist Party will not exist anymore, and it will be another collateral victim of the November 13th attacks in Paris.
And just to mention that the only party being divided is not the Socialist Party, it's also the French Right Party being divided in this issue. What they call the Republican side of this party is very critical of this suggestion, and saying that the nationality and citizenship is nothing that can ever be traded or changed or withdrawn. It's against the whole idea of the French nationality and of the French values. So them too being very split on this issue, I think we're going to see a very, very heated debate in the assembly in the coming weeks.
Yes, the debate will be very intense for sure, because the Conservatives, or les Républicains, they have their roots in the resistance movement of the Second World War. And to them, French nationality is a particularly sensitive issue, because during the World War, France was more or less collaborating with the Nazis, and thousands of Jewish citizens were stripped of their nationality. So this is a really, really controversial proposition, and it could bring Hollande into serious trouble in the next couple of weeks.
So this segues us over to our next topic, because France has this week opened up its archives from the Vichy regime, the one that we just said collaborated with the Nazis during World War II. More than 200,000 documents have been declassified and made public.
During the war, the French government moved from Paris to Vichy, a town in the middle of France, and they helped Nazi Germany to deport 76,000 Jews from France, including many children. So what to expect from these documents? Well, to begin with, access always makes it easier for researchers and journalists and the public in general. In these archives are court documents and, maybe most interesting, the interrogations made by the secret police at the time. And some of these documents have been impossible to access until now.
However, it's not only a bright side to this story. The most hardened researchers are still a bit skeptical, because they've been through this before. It actually was in 2008, a similar law was suggested, but once it had gone through the whole system and all the National Assembly and the Senate, it came out the complete opposite. And it actually made it even more complicated for researchers and the public to access these archives. So they say now that, well, we'll wait and see. We first want to see it before we actually believe it. But the hope is still up for these archives and these documents to now become public.
And if you would like to know what are in these archives, you will have to wait until the 4th of January, since the National Archives are closed over the holidays. So French. And since we're so French, this week's So French story, a very special and very French way of corruption.
We are in the middle of our most intensive and expensive holiday season. But for those who've managed to keep a couple of euros, the party is still on and not over. Anyone who's ever lived in France has more likely been exposed to les étrennes. I was quite surprised when I heard about this. I don't know about you, Stefan, but I had no experience of this whatsoever.
Yeah, it was something new that I learned here indeed. Les étrennes, I don't even know where the word comes from. Yeah, it's very strange. What is it, Sara?
Well, I can tell you where it comes from. It's from the Roman goddess of health, Strena, who was celebrated in the beginning of January.
So it's very old already.
It's very old. It dates back actually to the Roman Empire. But what it is, it simply said it's a minor sum, cash, paid to people in your surrounding who sort of doing your services in your daily life. It could be the mailman, it could be your housekeeper, it could be the person taking out your garbage if you're living in a apartment building. And these services are not free the rest of the year, but you're supposed to give it in an envelope beginning of January to show your appreciation.
And what happens if you don't give that money?
Well, quite a few people have had pretty bad experiences. I think this tradition is a little bit, it's losing a little bit of its strength, but it still exists. And people have been testifying and having said that, they have pretty bad experiences of not giving any étrennes to their concierge, for example, the person who takes care of the building, helps you with your mail if you're away and things like that.
Well, I can imagine giving money to the concierge in your apartment building because you see him or her every day. He has to accept maybe the mail from you. He's cleaning your stairs. So that's logical. But the strange thing is that also civil servants are asking for your money, don't they?
According to a law from 1789, it's actually illegal for state employees to receive any of these étrennes. However, it's still legal for firefighters to, under sort of the chaperone of a calendar, ask for your money.
So they sell you a calendar?
They sell you a calendar, and then they get, what's in between the money that they buy it for and what you pay for it, it's in their pocket.
I usually give around 5 to 10 euros to the firefighters.
Well, the thing is, yes, so let's now see. How much you're supposed to give then? You say firefighters.
Yeah.
5 euros?
Yeah.
True, 5 to 10 euros.
Okay.
Postman, how much you believe?
Well, 5 euros?
All the way up to 15 euros.
Wow.
And the same thing comes here. They give you a calendar, and whatever the gain is from in between, it's in their own pocket.
Yeah. The calendar is actually quite ugly. I think it will cost maybe
They're always
euros.
ugly. They're always really, really bad. But it's for your mail to be delivered. And I must say, I think I've done a pretty bad job when it comes to the mailmen, because I have an issue with the French postal system every week.
You should bribe them more. That's
I
the
think I
secret.
should. So how about the dustman then?
Well, I would give him 5 euros.
You could, unless if you live in Paris, which you do, and it's illegal for people in Paris to give étrennes to the dustman. Same thing goes for Nice and for Lyon. So you have to actually check with your local authorities to see who you are allowed to give money to in January.
So in some cities in France, bribing is not allowed.
True. However, your cleaning lady,
Okay.
how much?
I don't know. I'll buy her a box of chocolate.
That's not enough. Not less than 40 euros.
Oh, wow.
Half a monthly salary is what is suggested. And concierge, the last one, how much?
I don't know, like 50 euros?
More or less 50 euros, probably a good idea. 5 to 10% of her monthly or his monthly salary. They get around 1,500 euros at the end of the year. And all this tax-free.
Wow. Vive la France.
Vive la France. And just one last thing about this. Of course, what is this all? Bribes.
Yeah.
Good old bribes. Works most times. Legal, illegal sometimes. But as I said, keep contact with your local authorities to make sure that you're bribing the right person and the right amount.
Yeah, and who knows better how to bribe than the local authorities in France. And that leads us not only to the end of this third episode, but also to the end of 2015, a year that unfortunately was defined by terror, especially here in Paris. It started off, of course, with the attack against Charlie Hebdo and ended with those horrible November events. But let's look ahead. Don't be pessimistic. What will be the top stories of 2016, Sara?
Well, I think that we will still talk a lot about the war on terror and France's war on terror. And as we just said, the debate will soon be on about the constitutional changes. I'm sure we will see more laws being put in place, and of course new measures to try to stop terrorism and deal with the main issue here in France, as we say, which is the homegrown terrorism, how to deal with it. And I think we're going to see a lot of it in 2016.
And another problem is global warming. We've seen, of course, the climate summit last month here in Paris with a very applauded result. But in reality, we're living now the warmest Christmas in the history of mankind.
I saw somewhere 4 degrees above normal temperatures. So definitely our surroundings are changing, and we will have to adapt to it. And I think
we see it with the floodings in England, but also with the fact that a lot of ski resorts don't have snow this year. So that's very sad. It's also bad for economy. Global warming, it's a fact. What can we do about it? We'll see in 2016.
And temperatures will definitely rise in June when the Euro 2016 kicks off. Football games in Paris and all across the country. And maybe, who knows, this could be what saves the French economy and maybe even the tourism, which has been severely hit by the terrorist attacks over the last year. And why not? Maybe the beautiful game could be like this beautiful symbol where we'll unite the French society, which actually has been quite split over the last year.
And 2016 will see another kind of championship, the race to the Élysée, the presidential palace, in May 2017. The new year, we will find out who will be the candidates. In the new year, we will find out who will be the candidates. Marine Le Pen is one of them, that's for sure, and the Conservatives will organize primaries for the first time in their history. Nicolas Sarkozy, the former president, will be one of the candidates, just like former Prime Minister Alain Juppé. On the left, nobody really knows what François Hollande is going to do, but it is quite likely that he will be a candidate to his own succession.
That wraps up this 3rd edition of So French. You can follow us on Twitter. It's at SoFrenchNews. And if you have any suggestions or questions, send us an email. Our address is sofrench@sofrench.news.
And don't forget to subscribe to So French in iTunes or in SoundCloud, or to share the podcast with your friends. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of So French. We hope you'll join us then. Thanks for listening. Au revoir et bonne année.